A very good morning, dear students. I am here with part 2 of chapter 15, that is improvement in food resources. Part 1 of this chapter we have already discussed, and in part 1 of this chapter we discussed about crop variety improvement. Right? So now I am going to start part 2. And in this part we'll discuss two main topics. Out of those two main topics, the first one is crop production management and the second one is crop protection management, right? Under first topic, crop production management, we'll discuss three subtopics, and they are: the first one is nutrient management, the second one is irrigation, and third one is cropping patterns. And in crop protection management, we learn about storage of grains. Okay, so let me start with the first topic, that is crop production management. In India, as in many other agriculture based countries, farming ranges from small to very large farms. Different farmers thus have more or less land, they have more money and less money, and they have more access to information and technology, and some of them have less access to information and technologies. In short, we can say that it is the financial condition that allows farmers to take up different farming practices and agricultural technologies. If they are having large farms, so after selling their crops, they get more money, they can buy new technologies and they can improve their farming practices. But small farmers have their limitations, they cannot do that, right? So there is a correlation between higher inputs and yields. Thus, the farmer's purchasing capacity for inputs decide cropping system and production practices. Therefore, production practices can be at different levels. They include no cost production, low cost production, and high cost production practices. The first subtopic of this topic is nutrient management. Just as we need food for development, growth, and well being, plants also require nutrients for growth. Nutrients are supplied to plants by air, water, and soil. There are several nutrients which are essential for plants. Uh, Air supplies carbon, oxygen to the plant. Hydrogen is taken from water, and plants take 13 nutrients from soil. Okay. The nutrient that plant takes from soil can be classified into macronutrient and micronutrient. The nutrients that are required by plants in large quantities are called macronutrient, while the nutrients that are required by plants in small quantities are known as micronutrient. Okay, here is the list of the nutrients. Uh, Let me read that: carbon, oxygen, and carbon and oxygen is taken by the plant from air. Hydrogen and oxygen. Okay, some oxygen is also taken from water and hydrogen is also taken from water, and these are the list of macronutrients and micronutrients. Macronutrients are nitrogen, phosphorus, potassium, calcium, magnesium, and sulfur, and micronutrients are iron, manganese, boron, zinc, copper, molybdenum, and chlorine. And these nutrients are taken from the soil. Deficiency of these nutrients affects physiological process in plants, including their reproduction, growth, and susceptibility to disease. To increase the yield, the soil can be enriched by supplying these nutrients in the form of manure and fertilizer. Now, let me tell you what is manure. Actually, manure is the substance that contains large quantities of organic matter and small quantities of nutrients to the soil. Manure is prepared by decomposition of animal excreta and plant waste. Manure helps the soil by following ways. Let me read these for you. Manure enrich the soil with nutrients. It increases the fertility of the soil, and the bulk of organic matter in manure helps in improving the soil structure. This involves increasing the water holding capacity in sandy soil. In clay soil, the larger quantity of organic matter help in drainage and in avoiding water logging. So you can see how manure is helpful to the growth of the plant. In manure, biological waste material is used that is advantageous in protecting our environment from excessive use of fertilizers. Using biological waste material is also a way of recycling farm waste. Based on the kind of biological material used, manure can be classified into two groups. The first one is compost and vermicompost, and the second one is green manure. At first, we'll discuss what is compost and vermicompost. Compost is made by decomposing organic materials into simpler organic and inorganic compounds by the microorganism, and the process of preparing this is called composting. The process in which farm waste material like uh, livestock's excreta, for example, cow dung, vegetables waste, animals refuse, domestic waste, sewage waste, straw, eradicated weeds, all of these things are decomposed in pits, and the process is known as composting. And the manure prepared by this method is known as compost, right? So the compost is rich in organic matter and nutrients. Compost is also prepared by using earthworms to hasten the process of decomposition of plants and animal refuse, and this is called vermicompost. Green manure. Prior to sowing of the crop seeds, some plants like sun hemp or guar are grown and then mulched by plowing them into the soil. These green plants thus turn into green manure, which helps in enriching the soil in nitrogen and phosphorus. Actually, sun hemp is a multi-purpose tropical and subtropical legume grown in mainly for its high quality fiber. This is the crop that is grown as a cover crop, green manure, soil improver, and as a disease breaker in cereal or other crop rotation. Here in picture you can see sun hemp. What is fertilizer? Fertilizers are commercially produced plant nutrients. Fertilizers supply nitrogen, phosphorus, and potassium to the plant. Fertilizers are used to ensure good vegetative growth, giving rise to healthy plant. Fertilizers are a factor in the higher yield of high cost farming. Fertilizer should be applied carefully in terms of proper dose, proper time, and observing pre and post application precautions for their complete utilization. Fertilizer is a substance that cannot be provided to the plant uh, as we want. Actually, it is provided to the plant as per the requirement of the plant in a proper amount at a proper time. See, for example, sometimes fertilizers get washed away due to the excessive irrigation and they are not fully absorbed by the plant. So they are of no use of the plant. Okay. And the excess fertilizer, uh, this excess fertilizer will, what will happen? It will mix with the water. Okay. And then this will lead to water pollution. So it will not serve the purpose for whatever we are giving it to the plants. So when we are giving fertilizer or when we are applying fertilizer to the plants, we should be very careful about the dose, time, and pre and post applications of this. Yes, this is very important point. Continuous use of fertilizers in an area can destroy soil fertility because the organic matter in the soil is not replenished and microorganisms in the soil are harmed by the fertilizers used. So it is very important to use fertilizer in a justified manner. Short-term benefits of using fertilizers and long-term benefits of using manure for maintaining soil fertility have to be considered while aiming for optimum yields in crop protection. Excess use of excess use of fertilizer is not useful for soil fertility. Now we come to the next point, that is organic farming. Organic farming is a farming system with minimal use or no use of chemicals as fertilizers, herbicides, pesticides, anyhow. The farming, we can simply say the farming without any use of chemical is known as organic farming. Okay, maximum input of organic manure, recycled farm waste, use of bioagents is done in organic farming. Organic farming is done with the healthy cropping system like mixed cropping, intercropping, and crop rotation. These cropping systems are beneficial in insect, pest, and weed control besides providing nutrients. Here is the word bioagents. Let me tell you what is bioagents. Actually, bioagents are the culture of blue-green algae in preparation of biofertilizers, neem leaves, or turmeric, specifically in grain storage as biopesticides. Okay, so these are the bioagents. The next topic is irrigation. Most agriculture in India is rain-fed, right? Most of the agriculture is dependent on rain. That is, the success of the crop in most areas is dependent on timely monsoons and sufficient rainfall spread through most of the growing season. Hence, poor monsoon cause crop failure. If monsoon is good, crop will be good. If monsoon is not good, it is poor, crop will fail and farmer will not get the benefit. Ensuring that the crops get water at the right stages during their growing season can increase the expected yield of any crop. Therefore, many measures are used to bring more and more agricultural land under irrigation. India has a wide variety of water resources and a highly varied climate. Under such conditions, several different kinds of irrigation systems are adopted to supply water to agricultural land depending on the kinds of water resources available. Water resources in India are of these types. They are wells, they are canals, they are rivers and tanks. All these water resources are used by the farmers to fulfill the water requirement of their farms. Wells. There are two types of wells. The first one is dug well and then the tube well. In dug well, water is collected from water bearing layers of the earth. Okay. While in tube wells, water is tapped from the deeper layers. From these both the types of wells, water is lifted by pumps for the irrigation. Okay, so these are the wells. And canals. Canal is an extensive irrigation system in India. In this system, canals receive water from one or more than one reservoirs or from rivers. The main canal is divided into branching canals, and those branches canals further becomes distributaries to irrigate fields. This is a very important system, that is river lift system. The river lift system is used in the areas where canal flow is insufficient or irregular due to inadequate reservoir release. Water is directly drawn from the rivers for supplementing irrigation in areas close to the rivers. So those farmers whose farms are close to the rivers use this river lift system. And now the tanks. Tanks are small storage reservoirs. Tanks intercept and store the run of smaller catchment areas. Fresh initiatives for increasing the water available for agriculture include rainwater harvesting and watershed management. This involves building small check dams, which lead to an increase in groundwater levels. The check dam stops the rainwater from flowing away and also reduce soil erosion. Now we come to the second topic, cropping pattern. And under cropping pattern, we'll learn about various patterns of cropping. Different ways of growing crops can be used to give maximum benefits to the farmer. In cropping pattern, the first one is mixed cropping. Mixed cropping is growing two or more than two crops simultaneously on the same piece of land. In picture, you can see mixed cropping. Okay, see here are mixed cropping. More than one crops are there in the same field. For example, wheat and gram, wheat and mustard, groundnut and sunflower. These are the examples of mixed cropping. At the same time, these crops are grown in the field and farmer can take benefit of that, right? Mixed cropping reduces risk and gives some insurance against failure of one of the crop. Suppose if in your farm there are two crops and one gets failed due to whatever reason, so you will get the benefit of another crop. Okay, so that is why mixed cropping is useful. Now the second pattern is intercropping. Intercropping means growing two or more than two crops simultaneously on the same field in a definite pattern. A few rows of one crop alternate with a few rows of a second crop. For example, soybean and maize, bajra and lobia, they can be grown together in a particular pattern. See, the crops are selected such that their nutrient requirements are different. If they need different type of nutrient, then only they can grow well together. Otherwise, if they need same nutrient, it will be difficult to both type of crops to grow well. Okay, so when we are going for intercropping, we should select the crops that have different nutrient requirement. Okay, so what does this ensure? This ensure maximum utilization of the nutrient supplied and also prevent pest and disease from spreading to all the plants belonging to one crop in a field. This way, what happens? Both the crops can give better returns. Okay, here in this picture, you can see three crops are grown together in a proper pattern. This is maize, then soybean, and oat. Okay, so that is intercropping. And here in this picture, you can see intercropping of moong and sugarcane. Right? Now the next one is crop rotation. Crop rotation is the growing of different crops on a piece of land in a pre-planned succession. Depending upon the duration, crop rotation is done for different crop combinations. The availability of moisture and irrigation facilities decide the choice of the crop to be cultivated after one harvest. If crop rotation is done properly, then two or more than two crops can be grown in a year with good harvest and farmer can take best benefit of it. Now we come to the next very important point, that is crop protection management. Crops in field are infested by a large number of weeds, insect pests and diseases. If weeds and pests are not controlled at the appropriate time, then they can damage the crop so much that most of the crop is lost. So weeds are very harmful to the plants. What are the weeds? Actually, weeds are unwanted plants. These plants grow automatically by their own in the field. For example, gokhru are unwanted plants. They are weeds. Gajar ghas and moth, they are the weeds and they are harmful for the crop. Why they are harmful? Because see, these weeds compete for food, space and light. They take up nutrients of the crop and they reduce the growth of the crop. So this way they are harmful to the main crop. That is why removal of weeds from cultivated fields during the early stages of crop growth essential for a good harvest. If in the starting only, starting means when we are sowing the seeds, at that time only if weeds are removed, so they will not compete with the main plant, with the main crop for food, space and light. Otherwise most of the food nutrient from the food will be taken from the weeds and our main crop will not get benefited by the manure or fertilizer. Okay, so weeds are very harmful for the plants and it is very much necessary to remove the weeds from the field in the starting, in the early stage of the crop growth. Okay. And as I told you that weeds are very much harmful to the plant growth. In the same manner, pests are also very much harmful to the plant growth. Pests attack the plants in three ways. Number one, they cut the root, stem or leaf of the plant. Or some pests, they suck the cell sap from the various parts of the plant. And some type of pest bore into the stem and fruits. So this way they are harmful to the crop. And these pests affect the health of the crop and they reduce the yields. Disease in the plants are caused by pathogens. Pathogen means small microorganisms like bacteria, fungus, and virus. These pathogens can be present in and transmitted through soil, water, and air. Pests and weeds should be controlled for the better health of the crop. They can be controlled by various methods. Main methods are use of pesticides and mechanical method. Use of pesticides include a spray of herbicides, insecticides and fungicides. Actually these are the chemicals and they are sprayed on the crop plants or they can be sprinkled also in powder form, they can be sprayed also, depends on the type of this pesticide and they are used for treating seeds and soil. However, excessive use of these chemicals creates problems because they can be poisonous to many plants and even to animal species also, and they can cause environmental pollution also. So pesticides should be used in a very limited quantity and at a proper time. The second method of removal weeds from cultivated field is mechanical removal. So they can be removed by people. Preventive method such as proper seed bed preparation, timely sowing of crops, intercropping and crop rotation also help in weed control. So these were two important methods of crop protection. Some other preventive measures against pests are the use of resistant variety, summer plowing, in which fields are plowed deep in summers to destroy weeds and pests. Whichever method is convenient to the farmer, it should be used by them, but weeds should be controlled, pests should be controlled for better growth of the crop. Now we come to the next very important topic, and that is storage of grains. Proper storage of grain is also required for future use of the grain. Storage losses in agriculture produce can be very high. Factors responsible for such losses are, there are two type of the factors. They can affect the storage of grain, and that is biotic and abiotic. Biotic factors are insects, rodents, fungi, mites and bacteria, while abiotic factors are inappropriate moisture and temperatures in the place of the storage. If moisture is there at the place of the storage, the quality of the grain that is stored over there may not be high. Okay, it can affect the quality of the grain that is stored at a moist place. So these factors cause degradation in quality, loss in weight, poor germinability, discoloration of the produce, and all these factors lead to poor marketability. It means if the grain is not stored properly, okay, if at the place of the storage moisture is there or temperature is not proper, our food, our grain can be degrade. It cannot be sold in a proper value, and farmer cannot get benefited by these type of grains. So if we want proper use, a proper use for future of grains, they should be stored at a proper place, and they should be stored in a proper conditions. The place of the storage should not be moistured, and at a proper temperature they should be stored. All these factors can be controlled by proper treatment and by systematic management of warehouses. Warehouses are the place where grains are stored in proper conditions. Preventive and control measures are used before grains are stored for future use. Now let me show you what are those preventive and control measures. They are strict cleaning of the produce before storage, right? All the grain should be cleaned properly. Then proper drying of the produce, at first in sunlight and then in shade. Okay, and afterwards fumigation using chemicals that can kill pest. So after all this procedure, the grain is ready to store. So thank you students. This much was there in today's session. I hope you liked it. Now we'll meet in part 3 of this chapter, and in third part of the chapter we'll learn about animal husbandry. That will be the last part of the chapter. So thank you. Now we'll meet in last part of the chapter.